a columnist argues they should have kept a respectful distance. Of course, this is because Paul McCartney and I believe Richard Starkey, Ringo Starr of course, they're going to be collaborating with the Rolling Stones in a new song, perhaps a new album. I don't know the actual meat and bones. I did see the headline last week. I think it's a new song for starters anyway. Historic moment really for fans of the two acts. Obviously they're not the Beatles anymore, they're certainly not the Rolling Stones anymore. We don't have Brian Jones, we don't have Charlie Watts, we don't have George Harrison and John Lennon on this mortal coil anymore. They are sort of bit parts now of what used to be great bands. Of course the Beatles were a greater band because they are undoubtedly a better band than the Rolling Stones. That's not even up for debate. Anyone wants to come in and debate that with me, they can certainly try in the comments, but I will fucking run rings around them. A big moment though, these two acts getting together, two historically rival bands. There was a lot of stuff wrote and a lot of drama attempted to be churned up surrounding the two. They were trying to create rivalry, but certainly from what I've seen from interviews with Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, certainly what I've seen from the anthology, there was never any real animosity between these two groups. They respected each other tremendously. They were doing different things really. The Stones were always more of a blues band, really grimy rock band. The Beatles were more experimental, pop sort of, heartthrobs who developed into something truly extraordinary. They were extraordinary from the start, but they get better and better and better over the sort of 7 years of their, at least album years. But they were a better band, they were different bands, and there was no real animosity between the two by all accounts. They had great respect for each other, but yeah, it was churned up anyway. People try to create this controversy, and I don't think anyone could have envisaged maybe 50 years ago those two groups getting together and collabing on something and actually making a song together. So this should be an epic moment for music. It should be dancing in the street. Like, I think was Mick Jagger involved in that? I always want to fucking bring it up. I always get mixed up with that and Under Pressure. Was Mick Jagger in Dancing in the Street? I want to say he was. I don't know. I think he was. Under Pressure was Freddie Mercury. I'm pretty sure Mick Jagger and David Bowie had done Dancing in the Street. What's the fucking I'm having them doubt myself here. Real Estate should have been like something like that, a huge collaboration, but of course they're much, much older now. I mean, you just have to look at fucking Mick, you just have to look at Paul. Ringo looks fucking like 50 because he keeps dyeing his hair and he's aging well, it has to be said. But they're older gentlemen now and they're way past their prime. They really are. I've seen Paul perform. He's doing a grand job continuing on for the love of it. He certainly doesn't need the money. And he's bringing that performance for as long as he can to people who are willing listeners. We went and seen Paul, me and Stephen, back in 2010, 13 years ago, and it was a brilliant experience. Even then, he wasn't anywhere near what he was in the mid-90s, let alone back in the 60s, 70s. But it was still truly great to see this man, towering figure, live doing his thing. Now though, I mean, he has lost something palpable. He's been propped up by the backing singers, his guitarist, he's sort of drummer in the band, and they're still delivering a sort of brilliant package live, but he's lost something, and certainly Mick has lost something. Ringo never had as much as perhaps, well, I mean, he probably had as much as Mick, but certainly not as much as Paul. This guy got a #1 in America, for fuck's sake. But he didn't have as much to lose, so I mean, he's still great, Ringo. But there is something definitely been lost palpable, and I'm going to read this and see if I agree, but I find myself potentially agreeing here. They should have let history be. This would have been great 50 years ago and not so much now. To keep a short story for a long story short, I could have just fucking says that instead of speaking for like 10-15 minutes, going round in circles, tying myself in fucking knots. That's the last time I swear. I swore too much tonight. We'll get into it. The worst thing that ever happened to the Alien franchise was the Predator franchise. Two entirely different universes with distinct tones, rules and atmospheres lumped together for Alien v Predator in the name of cynical audience conglomeration. Likewise, Batman and Superman, Freddy and Jason, James Corden and any other celebrity in the car. That I do agree with. Music, of course, has been merging major franchises ever since Duke Ellington, Dina Washington and Nat King Cole shared a chemical toilet on the jazz tours of the early 50s. Between the countless collaborations, festival bills, encore guest spots, joint tours, supergroups and Gorillaz, like we did there, Gorillaz have got a new song out, it's pretty good, I like it. sort of tropical vibe going on with it. Really good. Your man Albon just knows what he's doing. Anyway, I digress. Experts now estimate that every musician on the planet will have played with every other one by February 2026. So ubiquitous are pop crossovers and high profile featurings that we become blasé about them. Having grown bloated and overfed with superfluous chunks of Mary J. Blige, Dave Grohl's on stage at Glastonbury with you. That all you got? Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Dave Grohl coming on the stage at Glastonbury. He's playing a guitar. I think he done, what was it, Digging Band in the Run? Nothing wrong with that. Dave's a big Beatles man. You can never get enough Dave Grohl. This is a long article, I don't think I can go through it all. Needless to say, as you can see here, announcement, biggest crossover of musical franchises imaginable. The Avengers assemble of 60s legends. The Cats does Countdown of Rock. Paul McCartney has joined Sonic forces with the Rolling Stones, but I'm pretty sure Ringo's involved as well. I am sure he is. The Beatles and the Stones together at last. The vibe at NME's sister publication Uncut could possibly for the first time in its existence currently be described as horny. The bolt from roughly 60 years ago out of the 60 years of blue is all the more surprising since it arrives just 2 years after Paul McCartney dismissed the Stones in an interview with the New Yorker as a blues covers band. He's fucking right, they were. Mac has notes to Keith Richards the day after publication, claiming that he'd been talking about what he thought of the Stones when he first heard them. Must have been gracious in the extreme. For here we are with a historic chance to finally unite the two mightiest rock acts playing together in public for the very first time. They did, obviously John did what with Keith's blues jam, the Dirty Mac, that was great. I'm pretty sure we got Yeah Blues played, there was a couple other things in there. Also John and Mick were having fucking beans or soup or something like that on a fucking plate. That's what they did back then. They took heroin and ate just garbage. Musically that was fucking great, but that was a lot of super group, man. That wasn't just the Stones and the Beatles come together. And it was 50, 60 years ago. 50 years ago. As you can see here, way down the queue of joint, blah blah blah. I'm just going to try and get at the meat and bones of this because the time is going on and I've read nearly a whole article and that's not great. I don't want to be doing that. Just get to the point, please, mate. Fuck's sake. We know the history. We know the history of the Beatles. Can you get to the opinion piece here, my man? I don't want to be doing this. This is almost like Bruce Almighty levels of breakdown in front of a camera. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. I can't remember the actual fucking quote. It's been a while since I've seen it. That's what I'm having here. Try to find this guy's opinion piece. Yeah. Look, man, I'm just going to cut to the chase. It's 50 years too late. It's 50 years too late. I'll give my opinion. If this was something that happened before I was born and I grew up listening to it, I'd be all for it, man. Because the two bands were fucking amazing. They were doing different things. I think they could have combined and gave us some truly stunning, iconic stuff. They could have done an album together and it would have meshed together beautifully. Because let's be honest, the Beatles were doing something, the Stones were copying it to a lesser degree, just 4 months down the road. So they were already kind of inadvertently collabing at a distance. They were doing lesser things. If they could have got in the room with the Beatles and maybe added their own little elements, little touches to a song, we would have got something fucking truly special. I wouldn't have known about it because I would have been but a twinkle in my grandmother or my grandfather's eyes at that point. But needless to say, it would have been great and I'd have grew up with it and I'd have loved it. Now though, in 2023, when they're in the late 70s, 80s, not so much, man. They are past their sell-by date in terms of creating new music, and it pains me to say that about Paul. The Stones have been going for forever. Their output has been getting gradually diminished again and again and again. You could make a strong argument for the Stones that they were never the same band after Brian Jones lost his sort of creative output to drugs and ended up face down in a pool, dead. He was the true brains, one of the founding members of that band, and offered so much on an instrumental level to the band. Once he went, it just became samey. It was the same shit. It was great shit, but it was the same shit. And even then it was the same shit. When Brian Jones was there, he was just flinging xylophones into it and saxophones. So, I mean, it would have been fucking great, but it's 2023. They're past the sell-by date. The Stones have been doing the same shit, the same old fucking stuff for the last 30 years now. It's like Elton John, just hang up the guitars, please. Jam in your house, have a great time. Hang it up. With Paul, as I says before, 13 years ago I seen him. He was brilliant, but he was losing something then. Now, his output hasn't been the same, man. And ultimately it is too late for me.